Observing myself as a critical reader. I think doing reader responses for every short story we read was very helpful. It helped me look back during our class discussion and remind myself of important things I noticed as I read. It also helped me organize my quotes and find deeper meanings to them. I also liked how I could compare my initial reactions with the rest of the class and see if theirs were the same as mine. It also required me to go back and reread the text, which I normally never do. This helped me catch things I missed the first time reading and include it in my response. I also use critical reading strategies in order to draft my responses. I believe that this class led me to be a better critical reader and analyzer of a text. Beginning the semester, I used the average reading skills such as highlighting and circling that I've used my whole life. However, I started to refer to Professor Hume's reading strategy paper a lot more the more we read. My favorite technique was still to highlight, however, I now highlighted for different reasons. I would highlight symbols and colors that stood out to me. I also highlighted phrases that showed characterization of a character. I also got into the habit of writing question marks in the margins of places I needed to go back and reread. Pictured below are examples of how I marked up the text as I read. I also like to write a summary on a sticky note about what the short story was about to remind myself for my reader response. My favorite digital tool application I completed this semester was my blog. At first, I was not looking forward to reading my own book because I have always hated free reading. I only would read if it was for a school assignment. However, once I started my blog, I found it enjoyable because I could make it my own and be creative. I almost felt professional because I could make my own aesthetic, but it was nice knowing that it was private. It also really helped me think deeply about my book. Usually when I free read, I would just read a certain amount of pages to get it over with. However, this assignment allowed me to pick apart the text and notice characters, symbols, and themes. It even encouraged me to go see the actual movie in theaters because I enjoyed the book so much. Many of the skills I have learned from this class I have been able to apply in my critical thinking class. I feel like I have become more creative when it comes to thinking, especially within my reading. I have used this new creativity in my critical reading assignments. For example, this creativity has allowed me to participate in class discussions when we talked about perception during class. I am now able to think outside of what is just given to me and deeply think about something more. Two things that I found I really struggled with throughout the semester were Antigone and poetry. I struggled with Antigone because I was not used to the type of writing style, and I have never enjoyed reading plays. I found it really hard to follow along with the plot, so I reread it many times. I also found it hard to keep track of all the characters, so I made a character chart. In this chart, I wrote the character's name, traits, and relationship to other characters. I also struggled with poetry because it was challenging making my poem creative and rhyme. I also had a writer's block and struggled to begin writing. However, I found it very helpful to go back and edit my poem when Professor Hume assigned us to. I found ways to make my poem flow more smoothly and rhyme better. My most memorable moment by far in this class, and even all of my other ones, was listening to Professor Giordano talk about his experience in the war. I was really interested in this topic, and hearing a real-life example was very cool. Hearing about his hardships and physical pain he went through made me think about how lucky I am to have the life that I do. I also imagined what it would be like if I got a letter in the mail saying I was being drafted. I also liked seeing the war artifacts he brought in and being able to compare those to what the characters carried in the actual book. My aha moment this semester was realizing that I was a good reader. It may seem like the simplest thing, however, I really do feel that I have grown as a reader. I feel that I am better at analyzing a text and finding deeper meaning than what is just given. I have also noticed that I enjoy reading more. I've always hated reading my whole life and dreaded reading assignments. However, I have really enjoyed the texts we read this semester, and I didn't mind having to read them. I learned that reading really isn't all that bad, and that I should do it more often.